Hello scientists of Reddit, why is a scary science fact that the public knows nothing about? There is a gravitational anomaly in space called the Great Attractor which is pulling everything within the Virgo and Hydra Centaurus superclusters towards it. It lies 150 to 250 million light-years from the Milky Way, which itself is being pulled towards it too. The scary part is that relative to us, this anomaly lies within the same plane as our own galaxy, making it very difficult to observe. Essentially, we have almost no concrete idea of what it is. If your dog swims in a lake after receiving a spot on flea treatment, it absolutely decimates the invertebrate population. A large dog swimming in 8 Olympic swimming pools worth of water soon after treatment will leach enough neurotoxin to kill 50% of the lake's invertebrate population within 48 hours. There's some awareness of this, but it's not being taken seriously enough. Scientific literature conclusion on Alzheimer's disease and other neurodegenerative diseases in general is that the diseases start decades before the first obvious symptoms and that we need to treat them at this stage. When you exhibit obvious symptoms, it's too late, your brain is already mush. If you get diagnosed with Alzheimer's at 65, you had the disease since your early 40s at least. And you experienced very mild symptoms but didn't notice it. And your brain fought like hell to compensate the deficit. When you get diagnosed, your brain is already very severely damaged and will never recover from the deficit. Most of the faults that are capable of causing large earthquakes have never been mapped. Cancer geneticist here. Most cases of cancer that are sequenced generally just denote the prognosis or how long a patient has to live, rather than treatment options. People always say let's cure cancer, however this simplifies cancer as though it is only one disease. It's far more complicated than that. I studied at one of the largest cancer hospitals in the world where the motto is to make cancer history, but the only obtainable goal is to make it chronic. We study and research as much as possible, but every cancer requires different research, and unfortunately the powers that be often prohibit funding and proficient research. It's work I am passionate about, but also a broken system that is infuriating to work in. The entire explosive output from Little Boy, the nuclear bomb dropped on Hiroshima, came from just over half a gram of matter being converted into energy. The mass of a butterfly exploding with the force of 15,000 tons of TNT. Anthrax can sporulate in dirt and stay viable for hundreds of years until the soil is disturbed and the spores inhaled. In the UK, about 17% of people have fetal alcohol syndrome, Maguire et al., 1992. As much as 17% of us are developmentally disabled simply because, prior to the late 90s, a large proportion of British mothers drank during pregnancy, 41%. Thankfully the prevalence rate has been falling fast since the late 90s when all this research was published, but it's terrifying to see how much of an effect FASD is having on society. The Cascadia Subduction Zone, CSZ, runs off the coast of Northern California to southern Canada and ruptures about every 250 to 350 years. We know this from the geologic record. The last rupture was in January 1700 and there are written records from Japan of a tsunami that resulted from the earthquake on the other side of the Pacific. This zone is still active and is likely to rupture in the next 100 years, resulting in a Mag 9+ earthquake that impacts the west coast from northern Cali to southern Canada. Prions. Misfolded proteins that cause a cascade of protein misfoldings that lead to amyloid plaque buildups, resulting in uncontrollable neurodegeneration that is fatal in 100% of cases within 2 years. There is no cure. We don't understand what causes it. We don't understand the mechanism of the misfolding cascade. We don't even fully understand the structure of the misfolded proteins. It could, in theory, happen to anyone, at any time, and there's no way to tell until you start showing symptoms, at which point you might have 18 months to live, if you're lucky, the last 6 of which will be intensely unpleasant. Some forms of anesthesia don't numb you to pain, they make you forget that you felt it. Hearing is supposedly one of the last senses to fade upon death based on EEG, brainwave recordings. There were once sea scorpions the size of a great white shark. Everyone knows about scurvy, but the reason it's so terrifying is usually less known. You see, scar tissue is not permanent, the process to build and maintain scar tissue is constantly ongoing. When you become vitamin C deficient, your scar tissue starts being reabsorbed by your body, opening up any and all old wounds. If you have ever had surgery, those internal incisions will open back up. Fortunately, it doesn't take a lot of vitamin C and it's abundant in our food sources, but it's still a little creepy that you could just start falling apart without it. In 1958, a 7,600-pound nuclear bomb was lost off the Georgia coast near Savannah. It's never been found. If you lie vying enough, your chances of getting dementia are 100%. My biochem professor used to remind us that no matter how healthy you are, you will die of cancer or you will die of dementia. At a certain point, your body just begins to shut down. You wouldn't melt like Gollum if you fall in lava. You would lie on top of it burning and evaporating. You'll die fast, so that's cool. I don't know if LD call it science purse or call myself a scientist lol, but I'm a former funeral director, and one of the first things you learn in your actual funeral sciences classes is that people over a certain body fat percentage will start a literal grease fire in your crematory oven if you don't bake them at the proper temp and duration. Cold start, low and slow is key. Haven't seen this one yet. Insects are going extinct. We have lost a significant chunk just since the 80s. I think it was around 20%. Motsies are going up, because of course, but just about everything else is going. Wasn't until I read this that I realized that as a kid in the 90s I used to see butterflies all the time. Dragonflies. My house used to get invaded by Christmas beetles every year. Not so much. These days I might see only 1 or 2 Christmas beetles in December, if any at all. When I was a kid, I remember finding 8 in my house in a single night, same house. Despite what advertising tells you, it's really hard to claim that something is scientifically proven. Why? Proving causality is complicated and expensive. We don't fully know how general anesthesia works. My usual technical answer is, it scrambles the brain, but that goes away when we turn the anesthesia off. We keep our dangerous bacteria species in a college campus fridge, protected by one single lock, with one power cord. If you live in the Netherlands and your house is older than let's say 100 years and you have not renovated your plumbing, chances are fairly high that you can get lead poisoning. It is impossible for water treatment companies to pinpoint where they are and how many, and many building plans do not include the plumbing schematics. So check your pipes for lead. They can do harm, especially to children. Soil science adjacent researcher here. We are degrading, polluting, and losing our topsoil at such a rate that we may not be able to produce enough food to feed everyone within 50 to 60 years, let alone what impacts climate change may bring to bear on our food supply. And the US government's crop insurance programs and incentives all reinforce the bad practices, while discouraging regenerative practices. These bad policies are extremely hard to change because of lobbying from the major agribusiness companies, who make money off of these short-sighted policies. Our food supply is further threatened by our agricultural overdependence on aquifer water, which is not being replenished, making it an unsustainable source of water. If the aquifers are overdrawn, depleted, or polluted, we hit a hard wall of water scarcity, and we will have no backups to address the problem with. The drawdown of the aquifers also causes land subsidence, which causes costly infrastructure and building damage. The general public does not realize the impending crisis that will be caused by the confluence of these factors.